Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews, coming at you guys with my review for Killing Eve Season 2, Episode 7. Alright, so, I don't know how I felt about this episode. I enjoyed a lot of it. The ending, I guess, is what kind of, kind of threw me off a little bit. But as a, second last episode to a season, I thought this one was a bit lackluster. I was expecting something bigger in this episode to happen, especially considering season 1, right? And the stuff that we saw in season 1 leading up to that insane finale episode. And certain things kind of were put in place in that second last episode to set that, big kind of cliffhanger or big event up in the finale. But in this episode, we didn't really see that. I just felt like this one, of course, there was kind of a big event with Nico, and Villanelle, of course, involved in this episode, and I feel like that's obviously going to play a big part in the finale, but other than that, there was nothing kind of within this main plot, necessarily, that actually, that actually happened in this episode that really kind of propelled us to next episode, though, the next time on, or the little teaser for next week, looks like it's going to be crazy stuff happening, next week, so I'm really looking forward to it. Season 2 is already coming to an end. It's really hard to believe. It seems like we just started Season 2. So, we'll have to do some rewatches. But anyways, so thank you so much for watching this one. If you enjoyed the review, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I really appreciate it. And, of course, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on the episode. What did you think of it? How does this, basically serve as a second last episode to you? Was it satisfying enough? And what are you looking forward to next week? Because I know I'm looking forward to probably going to be another big cliffhanger or something like that. We know it's getting a season 3 that has been confirmed at this point. So I'm really looking forward to what they're going to do next week. So of course we'll get through a little bit of a recap here, rating, favorite character, and some more overall thoughts. And like I said, maybe talk about next week with that teaser that we got at the end of this one. So, alright, let's get into the recap here of the episode without any further ado. So, we see right off the bat, Villanelle gets invited out to lunch by Aaron. So we see that she answers the door, I guess, and he gives her the philosophy textbook that she hit him in the face with right at the end of last episode. I really liked that and said, give me a second chance, right? And, we can, come out to lunch with me or something like that, right? So I really like that, right? It seems as though the book to the face impressed him too. So we saw his sister, who, she was trying to get closer to in the beginning to get close to him, was impressed by, her basically hitting him over the face with this book. But we also learned that he was impressed by that as well. And then we see this scene where she goes and sits down with him at a table where he's reserved the entire restaurant for them because he doesn't like eavesdroppers, he says. So I will say the Aaron character in this episode really was dynamic. I mean, right from the beginning, and what we've seen so far with this Aaron Peel is, our typical kind of stereotypical, rich young guy, that's inherited his dad or his parents' company and this stuff. But throughout the episode, we really see the kind of stark difference between that stereotype and what Aaron actually, or who Aaron actually is. And so within this scene, we already kind of pick up on these kind of weird things that he says and does with Villanelle, and it really comes full circle at the end of the episode, right? But anyways, so basically they're sitting in the restaurant there talking about, why she, was friends with his sister and how all this happened because he's trying to learn more about her, right? So then we see, meanwhile, Eve tries to leave Villanelle messages on her phone and check on her. So this was pretty cool, right? You're like, oh, what does this mean? And they've kind of been building up to this in the last couple episodes with Nico leaving Eve, right? And that played a huge part in this episode with the Eve and Villanelle relationship, and not just work-related. And we see that throughout this episode, especially on Eve's side of things, but also with Villanelle as well, kind of influencing that. But yeah, just crazy stuff, right? So Eve keeps calling her, make sure that she's okay and all that stuff. So we definitely see that attachment, that obsession, if you will, with Villanelle and she wanting to know if she's okay. And of course, she is doing this because they sent Villanelle in without any mics or anything, right? Because again, they want him to have that feeling, or they want her to have that feeling that she is in charge. She needs that. And that's what Constantine has told Eve and Carolyn as well. So we see Aaron quickly invites Villanelle to come with him to Rome after she tells him she likes to collect things with money and that she doesn't just want to sleep with him. And that's, he wasn't just getting close to his sister to sleep with him. So this was kind of funny, but we do see here that Aaron thinks that many women want to, right? He thinks that many women want to just sleep with him because he's a rich man, right? And that's, a lot of girls, or he says a lot of girls think that way, that they just want to sleep with me. And we get the feeling that he kind of thinks she's not the same as every other girl like he suspected. And I believe that's why he invites her here, and that's why he takes kind of a liking to her, is because he picks up on that right away, that she's not like any other girl that just wants to sleep with him, I guess, for his money. And that she, likes to collect things, she says, but also just that she's different, right? And she likes to see things. And this goes along with the whole thing that he doesn't know much about her, and he actually likes that. He likes that mystery. And so I really enjoyed this little scene here. So good news for the team, right? Billy or Villanelle, whichever you want to call it, right, is now on the inside with Aaron. And so now we know, of course, how they're going to get to Rome. So I did like this scene. It made sense the way it played out, and it really does make sense a little bit later in the episode when we learn more about Aaron and how he thinks, right? So then we see later Villanelle after the restaurant meeting, or the lunch, listens to Eve's messages smiling. So she knows exactly what's going on with Eve, and she kind of has her, hook, line, and sinker here at this point, right? She's kind of reeling her in now slowly with Nico leaving her and this whole thing, which you could argue Villanelle put that whole thing into motion, telling Nico those things and making him leave her. So really interesting stuff how Villanelle's been playing Eve really this entire season, really, ever since they've kind of both gotten back to what their, roles were in season 1. All right, so then we see Nico and Gemma. So this was the kind of interesting mystery of the episode until the very end with that cliffhanger. So they're going through Nico's storage unit, and suddenly Villanelle shows up. I love the reaction from Owen McDonald is the actor, but Nico's character here, just awesome, the reaction on his face. And we see Gemma, she doesn't really know what's going on, but we do see that she recognizes Villanelle from them meeting at the school and talking about Eve's husband, right? Talking about Nico. So anyways, I really did enjoy it, and I actually kind of forgot that those two met already. Of course, Villanelle was a little bit in disguise there. So Villanelle tells Nico that she watched Eve and him on the night that they talked, right? As we saw, she was standing outside the window in the rain, but she says something like, you don't know when the perverts are watching, or something like that. Which, I don't know, I still didn't quite understand that scene. I felt like it was maybe a little bit over the top with having her there just standing in the rain watching. But either way, I did like the callback here, and we see Nico's reaction to this too. It's like, what? Like, you were watching us and all this. And he also realizes here, I think, that Villanelle's been playing him, but also him and Eve kind of against each other at this point. So then she says that he owes her a thank you for that she was, able to tell him what Eve wanted there in terms of those sexual desires. So then she asks for his shepherd's pie recipe to please Eve. And we get this whole idea, right, that this whole situation is to please Eve because we know how she feels about Gemma, and we know how Villanelle knows she feels about Gemma, right? So anyways, then she gets serious and asks him who he really loves. This was really interesting stuff here. So Gemma and him are sitting on the couch. He answers he loves Eve. So really, I think that was clear. I think we expected him to say that. I never really bought that he did have feelings for Gemma. I really did buy that they were just friends. I think Eve was being over jealous at that point, going a little bit over the top after what, she had just been through with him leaving her. And so, anyways, we get a little bit of confirmation here that he still loves Eve, and he says, she's my wife, and all that, right? So, but to Villanelle, that is the wrong answer, and so she says that she is going to hurt Gemma because Eve wouldn't forgive her if she hurt him. Very good point here, right? Very good point. Eve would definitely. We know her feelings to Nico right now, right? Not the strongest. But if Villanelle tried, killing Nico, I mean, that would not go over well with Eve, clearly, right? And also, we see that, like I said, Villanelle really doing all of this to get with Eve and get rid of Nico, and then in the process, killing Gemma would also please Eve. So we see all of this really trying to just, Villanelle getting closer to Eve and maybe trying to please her with killing Gemma here. And so I believe it's implied in the scene that she does kill Gemma. We get a little bit of confirmation here. I'll go out of order here just for a moment. But we do get a confirmation to end off the episode where Nico wakes up in the unit to find Gemma dead on the couch with a bag marked fragile over her head. So I do feel bad for Gemma, I will say. She's not a very likable character either. They never set her up to be. Kind of a fan favorite, of course. Fans of Eve are obviously not going to like her. But ultimately, I think she just wrong place, wrong time type of thing. She was not really guilty of anything at this point, and Villanelle ends up killing her. The fragile bag was pretty fitting, if the whole context of the scene, and I like that touch. So, anyways, we do find out that Villanelle kills Gemma at the very end of the episode, which I thought was kind of implied. I thought it was kind of obvious at this point. And like she said, she's not going to hurt Nico because Eve would not be okay with her doing so, and so that's the way it goes. But anyways, I'm going to tackle this question a little bit later, but what is Nico going to do? How is he going to react to this? And how is he going to treat Eve now as a result? I don't know. But anyways, I really like that story. All right, so then we see Carolyn tells Eve to take Hugo with her and Villanelle as they head to Rome. So they're organizing basically the whole trip here. To get to Rome, they're going to stay in the hotel, of course, to monitor Villanelle and Aaron's conversations and their interactions, right? And also try to find out more about this weapon, as they call it. So we find out Eve is going to be put in charge of Villanelle and keeping her in check during the trip. This time, she can't just kill her way out of it. I believe these are Carolyn's words, but Constantine kind of reiterates that point that Villanelle is known just to kill her way out of things. And in this situation, she doesn't have that option. They need Aaron alive, and they need to learn about this weapon. So if she's pressured by Aaron, if he does something that she doesn't like, she can't just kill him, and that's going to be something that she has to adjust to in this scene. So really interesting stuff here. And then I like this scene a lot. So, however, then as she leaves the house, we see a little bit of interaction with Kenny and her kind of look at each other a little bit in the previous scene. But then we see that Kenny stops her and basically, gives her charger. Not really her charger at all, just an excuse to talk to her there. But anyways, he stops her and tells her not to go to Rome, as he seems to know something that she doesn't. Which is very interesting here. I thought, kind of split on this one, right? Is he right here? Does he actually have some research or know something is about to happen that would put her in danger? Or does he just not want her to leave, right? Or, put herself in that type of danger with Villanelle and Aaron and all that stuff? Or does he actually know? Like, does he know Aaron is psychopathic and that he and Villanelle could come together and do something, which they have been foreshadowing this entire episode, and it seems like they're kind of getting to that at the end of this one. So I just really like that scene. I wish they would pay a little bit more attention to it, and we might see that in the finale where we find out that Kenny was right. We are on track for a little Kenny redemption story here, so I'm sure that they'll do something with this scene. I'm sure it wasn't just for nothing, so really enjoyed that one. All right, so then as Eve and Hugo check in their room, so does Villanelle, and we quickly learn that Aaron has discarded her luggage and filled her closet with his clothing choices, and along with that, he is watching her on video cameras to see what she is doing at all times. Wow, right? Control freak much? Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And then of course we learn maybe it's a little bit more than control freak, and this I think is what Eve says at this point in time. with him being a control freak and wanting to control everything, including Villanelle at this point. And we see that Villanelle kind of has this inkling that that is what might be happening, that she is being watched. As we see her put that microphone in later, she basically perfectly avoids the cameras and puts herself at an angle so he can't see her. So I really did like that stuff, right? And then we see the massive foreshadowing here is Hugo raises the point of them both being psychopaths. Like, what if they are, or what if they both have psychopathic tendencies? What could happen here, right? And he says the two cold-blooded psychopaths in one room, which is really interesting, right? And we also see here that Eve goes to see the doctor, right? The doctor from, I believe it's a couple episodes ago, or maybe it was last episode. Anyways, and so she goes to see this doctor and asks what could happen with these two psychopaths in the room. And basically, they don't really go back to that point. It's more just about her and her obsession with Villanelle. But it goes back to kind of how he says, well, I wouldn't do that, right? It's pretty dangerous. So again, more foreshadowing about Aaron and Villanelle being in the same room. And it happens in the end. So we see Eve ends up slipping Villanelle a mic through a piece of bread, and then they are able to hear her throughout the kind of stay or throughout the trip. And Villanelle smartly puts it on without him seeing, as I just mentioned, kind of avoiding that camera angle. And so it seemed as though she knew, right, that he was watching, and she was able to know where the cameras kind of were in the room and pick up on that really quickly. So anyways, really like this, and of course we know that they didn't have any ears on her until this point because of course Aaron discarded her luggage with the microphone that was in there. Alright, so then Villanelle attends the first business meeting with Aaron, and we see his control over her, telling her what to wear, how to sit, right, and telling her, stay exactly still, just like that, and all this stuff. So really, really control freak here, and kind of a weird obsession though as well, with him telling Villanelle to stay in certain positions and take off this belt and eat this chocolate, spit it out, and all that stuff, right? So we see that, and we see Villanelle's like frustration here. Really, like, under the surface, she just really, really wants to kill him, right? But we know she can. She knows she can at this point. She's got to go a bit further. Anyway, so then we also find out that this weapon, as they refer to, that he's selling, is basically a background scan on anyone in the world, as he demonstrates with the man sitting at the table next to him, who I guess is there for the business meeting to bid on this new weapon. So pretty scary stuff, I think, and something that people would pay a lot of money for. And then we also see that even Hugo get it all on tape because they're able to, have Villanelle with the mic there, and they're able to pick it all up. But, so it does make sense. I mean, it's not a nuclear weapon or something like that most people would think of when you say weapon, but wow, right? That is a pretty big weapon in terms of, like political sphere, getting, dirt on your opponents and all that stuff. And obviously from Aaron Peel's perspective, being a CEO of a company and other companies knowing exactly what their CEOs are up to and blackmailing and all this stuff, right? So very powerful weapon, and obviously something that could be sold for a lot of money. And something that, of course, is illegal. And so, of course, Eve and Hugo and the team are going to obviously try to prevent that. Anyways, I did like that, but this was hinted at before. We've seen Aaron being able to basically deduce everyone's background so far. And I think this was kind of alluded to before, that this was the weapon, or he was at least had these capabilities to do so. So, anyways, after the meeting finishes then, this is the kind of pivotal scene in the episode to me, at least. So the meeting finishes and Aaron sits down with Villanelle and admits to her that she is the only one he knows nothing about. So he says, she is a shadow. So obviously she is, right? Because she's in disguise. Obviously she's not really Billy. And we also learned that Hugo didn't do a very good job because he was able to get past all these fake profiles that he set up for her. So anyways, a really interesting conversation here. So then he says he is the same way and that nobody knows about him. So it's a really interesting dynamic here because he has this weapon, he has this capability of knowing everything about everyone, right? But no one knows anything about him. So it's a really interesting dynamic here for Aaron Peel. And we get the feeling it's deeper than just their secret backgrounds, this kind of moment of bonding. To me, I feel like this was the moment that they realize that each other are psychopaths, or at least have psychopathic tendencies, right there on that couch. I feel like they realize each other are the same, right? Or at least they have the same tendencies. And so, or at least just as a viewer, we realize Aaron is, right? Or we realize that, what they've been setting up this whole time, it's true. Aaron actually does have those psychopathic tendencies. It's more than just him being a control freak. And then they also talk about being lonely, how they feel about others. So really setting up some things here for sure. And we do, Eve addressed this at the very beginning of the episode. Villanelle asks her if that's how she truly feels, if she does feel bored, like she talked about in the AA meeting last week. And that comes back here, right? Whether they feel bored, whether they feel lonely, how they interact with others, and how Aaron, knowing all this information about others, makes him feel not as lonely. So really interesting stuff here, and I feel like it was actually a truthful scene playing out. So we'll have to see where this goes. And then we see Hugo starts to worry that they're getting too cozy and might turn on Eve and him. Again, an interesting dynamic here, foreshadowing the entire episode so far has been building to this moment, and so we wonder if that actually is what will be happening. It's hard to see Villanelle turning on Eve, though, at this point, but Hugo, I don't know, maybe they might find out Hugo, and he might die. I'm expecting a big death next week, and so we'll have to see who it is. Hugo might be a good candidate for it. I don't know. So, then the end of the episode came, and it just kind of brought me out of it. All right, so Hugo and Eve sleep together. So this was, I don't know. So this is pretty much after Villanelle encourages Eve to let herself go on the microphone line as they listen in. And I'm just like, oh no, right? No, this is wrong, right? And then the next morning, we figure out a little bit more, and Hugo figures it out pretty much just as we do, which is what happened, right? And tells Eve thanks for the threesome, right? Implying that Villanelle was in her ear the entire time that Hugo and her were sleeping together. So, it's interesting. That makes more sense than what I initially thought, that Villanelle basically just told her to let herself go, and then she went over to Hugo. It does make more sense now why Eve would do that. But still, guys, I don't know about this one. I don't know. It really threw me off. I didn't see this one coming. I didn't like the scene where they set up earlier in the season where Hugo and Eve were about to kiss. I don't know. I understand what is implied here, that Villanelle makes her feel that way, and that she's able to do that with Hugo because of Villanelle's voice in her ear. But then just her reaction to it the next morning wasn't like, oh, like, we're like, she did say we don't have to talk about this again or something like that. But she wasn't, like, it seemed like she, like, didn't regret it that much. So, I don't know. I don't know how I felt about it. I'd love to get your guys' thoughts, I guess. But the way they set up Hugo as a character, and then to see this, I don't know. But I did like the whole way that they were setting that up with the feelings for Villanelle and Eve, and how Villanelle's able to influence her that much with those sexual desires. So, anyways, that's basically how the episode ends off there this week. Alright, so in terms of rating for this episode, I'm going to give it a 4.3 out of 5, which is pretty low for this season so far. I don't know, I thought this was a lackluster second last episode of the season. I just expected more. Like I said off the top here, I don't know, I just, compared to season 1, right, and we're obviously always going to keep comparing to season 1, because season 1 was amazing. I mean, let's just be honest. It was amazing, and that's what really kind of jump-started my enjoyment for this show, mainly with the uniqueness. And season 2, they're still able to put so many original and unique spins on this stuff. But anyways, I just expected a little bit more from this episode. I thought there'd be a big cliffhanger, which you could argue there is, with Nico and Gemma being killed by Villanelle, but I just felt like that was kind of obvious, the way they had it in the beginning of the episode. Nothing surprised me there. And I just felt like there would be more. I liked the episode. I did. I enjoyed it. The ending threw me off, but I kind of understand where they're trying to get at there. There wasn't anything necessarily, wrong from a writing logical standpoint or anything like that. I just thought it was a little bit lackluster. I expected a little bit more from this episode. I thought they'd set up something huge to rope us in for this big finale next week, and it doesn't seem like they did that. This just seemed like kind of every other episode. So I don't know, but the teaser for next week looks insane. Eve hiding under a bed and breaking down this like wooden block or blockade or something like that. I don't know. It looks pretty cool. So maybe they're saving up for next episode and it's going to be huge, or maybe they are going to just go with a kind of a lower profile finale this year. I don't know. I would expect something big. I'm expecting a character death here because we lost Bill. I mean, Frank, you could maybe argue, and we've seen those character deaths before. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Carolyn, Hugo, I don't think Jess, because I think I don't think we'll see her next week. I think she's kind of out of the show because the actress is pregnant in real life, so I'm not sure how she'll, factor into season 3 here. But anyways, I think maybe Hugo or Carolyn may actually die next week, but we'll have to see how that goes. Anyways, just expect a little bit more from this one, and I'm sure that you guys kind of would relate to that as well. I don't know. I just felt like this one a little bit lackluster. The development of Eve and Villanelle was great in this episode. They've been building up to this, and this episode really showed that with kind of Nico separating a little bit from Eve. Now Eve is kind of single, kind of open, I guess, for Villanelle to kind of come in there and provide that kind of fill that hole in her life right now, which is really interesting, right? Because that's kind of, like I said, the whole series has been building up to this. Now, in season 2, do I think it's a little bit soon for this? Maybe. So I'm not sure what they're going to do in this finale, if they're going to end up hooking up or something. I don't know. Crazier things have happened, I guess. But I would like if maybe they just waited a little bit longer. Because, this show could have 5 seasons or something like that. Like, who knows right now? And so for them to do this soon, maybe just a little too quick. But anyways, I really do enjoy it. The expectations for me, though, have now gone up for next weekend's finale. I'm expecting a lot for next week because of this episode being a little lackluster here. Wow, I'm really looking forward to next week, guys. Really, really looking forward to it. And what will Nico do now? I'm really wondering how he'll factor into this finale and how he'll end up. I'm assuming that him and Eve are going to have some type of confrontation here, whether he goes to Rome or I'm not exactly sure. But I think that Nico's going to play a part in this finale, and something big is going to happen, or at least Eve will find out that Villanelle killed Gemma, something like that, and something is going to happen here. But anyways, really looking forward to that as well, because that was a big scene in this episode. All right, favorite character for this one, I got to go with Villanelle, played by Jodie Comer, of course. Villanelle was great in this episode. Just awesome stuff with her being, Billy. And I thought about it in this episode, too. So Jodie Comer is an English actress, right? And so she is doing this kind of Russian accent as Oksana or Villanelle in the show. So she, in this episode, is essentially doing, doing a Russian accent, which she's obviously not, Russian. She's doing a Russian accent while trying to do an American accent. Like, she's literally putting basically on 3 accents here in this role of playing Billy for Aaron Peele. So to me, like, it's just mind-blowing to me that she has this amount of talent and range. Is just incredible, and her ability to showcase that in the show is outstanding. She's a shoo-in for Emmy this year. I don't know, maybe she won't win it or whatever. We'll just have to see. But she's got to be nominated this year. I'm telling you, Jodie Comer is amazing. And Villanelle, we'll have to see where she goes and what this decision killing Gemma might have in store for her and Eve's relationship going forward. And maybe she will be in danger next episode, and maybe they'll have to go in to save her. Maybe Aaron figures her out. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm really looking forward to it, though. And Jodie Comer, of course, did an amazing job in this episode and obviously in the whole entire season. So, anyways, guys, that'll just about do it for my review for Killing Eve Season 2, Episode 7. Really looking forward to the finale, as I said, next week. Really kind of anticipating what they're going to do here and whether we'll see a big death, whether we'll see a big cliffhanger. Really looking forward to it. And of course, we know season 3 is coming, so we know that it's going to be at least at least we'll have another season if it is a big cliffhanger to kind of play out that story. But anyways, thank you so much for watching this one. Thank you so much for the support on these reviews and the channel in general. I really appreciate it, guys. So I'll see you then next week for my review for Killing Eve season 2, the finale episode.
I had to kill you.